State-sponsored hacking. The future of warfare. What is state-sponsored hacking? State-sponsored hacking is a type of cyber warfare waged by a government. The government facilitates a group or an individual in a targeted hack of a certain system to either benefit the state or the greater public. Does this really affect us, though? At current, there has been a number of speculated state-sponsored hacks. Although proof is not conclusive to these hacks, the goal can be clearly linked to the goal of certain state governments. Of current, these hacks have had no impact on our lives. We may have read about them in the news, but it is doubtful that we will lose sleep worrying about these hacks.
So what state-sponsored hacks should we know about? In December 2014, Sony was hacked, presumably due to the film The Interview it created depicting North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in a bad light. This gained massive media traction worldwide and consequently led to a massive delay in the release of the film. Sony obviously feared that further attacks could cripple the company. For many people, this is the first time they witness alleged state-sponsored hacking for political reasons. However, this is far from the first or most severe state-sponsored hacks. There have been many other alleged state-sponsored hacks over the past 10 years.
In 2012, Iran was hit by a high-level malware attack known as Flame. It was stated to be the most sophisticated cyber weapon yet unleashed by Russian security firm Kaspersky. It had high-level functions including network monitoring, disk scanning, screen capturing, recording sound from inbuilt microphones, and infiltrating various Windows systems. This is an extreme invasion of privacy and potentially a violation of human rights. This was an extremely sophisticated attack which required huge resources to execute, which would lead people to believe that it could only be state-sponsored.
PRISM. What is PRISM? PRISM is a data mining program used to monitor all information that passes through internet systems throughout the world. Edward Snowden's revelations about PRISM in 2013 brought to light the clandestine activities of organisations within the American and British governments, unknown to the common public. PRISM was used by the NSA and GCHQ to gather an alarming amount of information. This caused outrage by the public, but yet there was very little done about it. To an extent, this didn't shock the public enough to warrant any major repercussions, as a lot of people assumed these activities were taking place anyway. This is the first clear-cut example of state-sponsored hacking.
So far, we have only given examples of state-sponsored hacking that look to monitor information. However, there are examples of more malicious activities. In June 2010, a computer worm known as Stuxnet was discovered that had the potential to cause a nuclear shutdown at the Natanz nuclear facility in Iran. Stuxnet was able to manipulate the output displays of the computer systems to give the impression that the plant was running successfully. This had the potential to be catastrophic, as essentially nothing was monitoring the plant's real status. This would have remained undetected only for it spread past its intended host and infected 58% of Iran's computer devices. This is a silent and deadly weapon. The sophistication of this weapon means that a lot of funding would have gone into its development. American government officials have hinted having involvement and have not been subtle in saying they were pleased with Iran's distress, stating,
"We're glad they're having trouble with their centrifuge machine and that we, the US and its allies, are doing everything we can to make sure we complicate matters for them."
To shut down Iran's nuclear facility will cause disruption to their energy systems, financial loss, and huge investment to get destroyed systems back working. The question remains whether this was an attack or an attempt to prevent warfare.
Now that we have an insight into the capabilities of cyber warfare, we can debate its future. Our government have a role to protect its people, but is state-sponsored hacking going too far?
The government could argue that state-sponsored hacking would avert war.
If people could fight, that would be the cause of war.
State-sponsored hacking could be the means of prevention of kinetic warfare by keeping our enemies weak. Like with Stuxnet, the government who created the system were able to disrupt the perceived enemy of its nuclear energy. The government can argue that this had the potential to save millions of lives at the fraction of the cost of going to war. In order to protect our people, we need to keep our enemies weak.
The Sundex attack could have prevented the country from providing a cheap source of energy for its people. The attack has worsened relations between the parties involved and could lead to all-out war. How do governments think they are averting war performing acts of cyber warfare?
The government could argue that state-sponsored hacking would lead to huge development in technology.
But will these strides in technology matter if the technological infrastructure is disrupted?
Warfare leads to great strides in technology, like GPS, computers, and the microwave. If we don't develop our own cybersecurity, other nations will surpass us. And if the need for cyber warfare arises, we may not have the ability to protect ourselves.
Will this become something like the space race between Russia and America, though? Will we begin to develop huge technologies that we can't tell their capabilities? Subnet was created to fuse a nuclear reactor, but did its creators really know how destructive it could become? And even now, the Iranian government are rumoured to be re-engineering the technology called Shamoon to strike back at their enemies.
Can we really put a cap on the potential of technology out of fear for what it will become? We can't even begin to imagine what developments in technology will come from cyber warfare. The strongest argument the government hold is that if we don't advance our cyber capabilities, our enemies surely surpass us.
But on the other hand, people could argue that if the government were to jump off a bridge, would we follow?
By not advancing our cyber capabilities, are we becoming sitting ducks? Should we not be using technology to take anti-terrorism methods, like with PRISM? Even if we don't proceed with cyber warfare, it would be foolish for us to assume others won't. Cyberspace should be monitored for malicious content in order to protect the public.
How much monitoring must be done before any suspicious activity is detected? And realistically, how many terrorists would plan attacks without pulling it? Is it more of an invasion of public's lives than a protective measure?
We could make many more arguments for and against state-sponsored hacking, but the fact is, these arguments are all theoretical. We have no way of knowing what the outcome of state-sponsored hacking will be. For better or for worse, it's inevitable that this will be the future of warfare. If our own government chooses not to pursue this route, another government will happily move in to take its place. We believe that although state-sponsored hacking may not be the best choice for the future, we can't leave ourselves in the shadows of other countries' cyber developments. Although this war of bits and bytes may lead to bombs and bullets, it would be naive for the state to not develop their technologies when others so clearly are. Thank you.